Hey guys, so I have done quite a few Herald of Thunder builds in the past, and it's always one of my most favorite playstyles. It's very chill, relaxing. You just walk as it's like walking simulator. And the last time I did that was with the triple damage staff and omniscient stacking, and that was absolutely amazing damage. And you don't need that much DPS, like 2 million, 3 million DPS is all you need. Well, probably closer to 3 million DPS is all you need for this build to feel good. Now, this is also very cheap, and this time I went with the Crest of Desire approach. Essentially, you just place Herald of Thunder inside it, and that's it. You don't need to worry about supports, or other links, or even getting a 6th link. And I am going with a shield, which gives me more survivability this time. So the build is cheap to start. It still requires couple divines, like 3 divines, I would say. Below 3 divines, you can start with like somewhere around 2 divines initial cost for the base items that you need. Obviously, as you improve the build, you will want to invest more, and it still has more room to improve this. You can always invest more into your build and just get more out of it. But investments after this point would either have to sacrifice, if you want more damage, you would have to sacrifice some defenses, which I absolutely do not want to sacrifice, or you would have to invest like many more, almost said exalts, many more divines. I am happy with this build progress, and I was farming tier 16s, guardians. I still have not done Sirus, but I will do Sirus in like maybe tomorrow. I haven't done any like uber bosses, but I did. I just defeated the Ether. The build performs really well, and surprisingly, it does feel pretty tanky. Obviously, with the Herald of Thunder builds, you never really have like really high defenses. It's usually the point of the Herald of Thunder is just blast through enemies and then clear everything out and then destroy stuff before it kills you, essentially. Also, another thing, if you think that I'm just moving slow, yes, I don't really like moving too fast and rushing too fast, but you can absolutely make this build faster, essentially. I just don't shield charge very often, and I don't shield charge very well because I just keep getting stuck behind stuff. So essentially, this build can be fast, it can have good damage and decent defenses. I'm actually currently spec'd into Atlas, into Ether of Walls altars, and to maximize the profit out of them. And I even got lucky with the Divine altar and got 8 divines off stream, so I don't have a clip to show that. But overall, the build is a big success on a pretty low budget, I would say. So I'm gonna talk how everything works here, what items you need, and everything else. As always, path of building import code will be in video description. If you want quick numbers, I have 2.8 million DPS. And for bossing, you kind of need to swap your gloves. So you want to prepare the sockets inside the gloves to kind of be matching. Another cool thing is I can shock even the biggest bosses for over 40% by hitting them with like level 1 skill. And everything is coming from the increased effect of ailments and increased effect of lightning ailments specifically. On top of that, I'm also chilling enemies. I have aspect of the spider that slows them down. I am immune to poison because corrupted ring, which is also very cheap. I do have decent block, not really capped on attack block. It's a bit harder to get attack block with this build, but I also do have a recover percentage life when you block, so that also helps. And I am running Corrupted Soul, which splits the damage that I take between life and energy shield. And I do have life leech, I do have ES leech, I do have ES regen, and I do have a decent amount of life regen because I am also running golems. And for my guard skill, I am using Immortal Call, consuming 3 endurance charges to increase its duration, so my Immortal Call always lasts for around 2 seconds. And I am very easily generating endurance charges because the rings that I'm using do damage to me. By the way, if you're thinking about the Sanctum only monsters and traps inflict damage to your resolve or inspiration. The self-inflicted damage is not monsters or traps, so it doesn't affect it. So you are safe to run Sanctum with the builds that inflict self damage. Right, so I'm gonna talk about the items, skills, links, passive skill tree. So the initial items that you want to get is Crest of Desire. You want to get +8 to Socketed Gems, which costs around, well, 1.2, 1.4 divines, and currently divine price is 300. I believe it's 300 now. Yep, divine price is currently 300 chaos. which is quite a bit. But if you cannot get +8, just get +7, maybe a bit higher quality. It's going to be a lot cheaper, but you're going to lose tiny bit of damage. The helmet enchantment doesn't really matter. If you can get something nice, it will be nice, but don't worry about the helmet enchantment too much. Then you want 2 storm secret rings. Later on you may want to upgrade with the cannot be poison corrupted, and then maybe even avoid bleed or whatever the mod is, if you have enough resistances. But mainly you want to get Herald of Thunder storms hit enemies with the as close as possible to a 50% increased frequency. And the way this works, without these rings you have to kill a shocked enemy. When you put these rings on, you have to just shock the enemy and then it procs Herald of Thunder. You essentially start this build at around level 56, 58 is required for the Crest of Desire. So I just started using Herald of Thunder as my main skill at level 58. Just the Crest of Desire, it was absolutely a blast at that level, like absolutely destroying everything. But with 2 rings, you're gonna be taking quite a lot of damage to yourself at that level, and it's gonna be difficult to sustain your life. So at that point, you also want Glorious Vanity, Doriana's version, which does give Corrupted Soul. With that, you split the damage that you take between life and energy shield. So the rings no longer just drain your life, but it drains, or without that jewel, they would just drain your energy shield and then would start draining your life, which makes your energy shield pretty much useless after like a second or 2. But with that jewel, you split the damage taken between life and energy shield, and then you want to get an item that regenerates energy shield, or get some energy shield leech. That way you can recover both life and energy shield and take the damage into life and energy shield. Or you may just, at lower levels, just use 1 storm secret. You will have a bit less DPS, but it will be much easier to sustain. You also want to get Lone Messenger. When you put this on, you will not be able to use other auras, but you can still use other things that reserve mana that are not auras, like Tempest Shield or Aspect of the Spider. I believe like Flesh and Stone, Blood and Sand, but those are not really useful for this. You can also use Temporal Rift and be immune to Temporal Chains. I do use that when I swap the gloves. That's another thing that you want for this. You're also gonna want Impulsor, that's what makes the explosions happens, and then you want Storm's Gift gloves. So Impulsor and Herald of Thunder itself cannot shock, but when you put this on, the enemies that you kill apply a shock onto other nearby enemies, and that allows like a massive chain explosions from the Impulsor. But then for bigger bosses, for tougher targets, you're gonna want to swap these gloves into Algor Mortis. Enemies in your chilling areas take 31% increased lightning damage. It rolls up to 35%. You can also get the gloves enchantment. I believe this one is from Uber Lab. I don't remember the other names. I'm gonna check wiki and put them on the screen, but this glove enchantment creates a chilling ground, which does have a 5-second cooldown, and it only lasts for like 2 or 3 seconds, so it would have a downtime. Or you can just use cast when damage taken with like Cold Snap. The Cold Snap does have a cooldown, but you also passively gonna generate frenzy charges while mapping, so it's also nice. And Cold Snap has like a big AoE, so it's easier to cover a big area. But you can use something else like Creeping Frost, or some people prefer Vortex on left click. I don't really like doing that because it just pollutes the screen with visual clutter. You don't need that. And on my left click I do like running Immortal Call anyway. The reason why it gives so much damage, well, it also increases the effect of your shocks, which makes enemies take increased damage. And this is like a more multiplier. It's not just a normal increased damage, but it's like a more multiplier. And also, chance to sap enemies in chilling areas. Sapped enemies do less damage. That's also a very big improvement into your tankiness. So yeah, those are the main items. Crest of Desire, Impulsor, 2 Storm Secret, Storm's Gift Gloves, Algor Mortis. You don't need them at the start, but you will definitely want them later on. Lone Messenger, and the Glorious Vanity for Doriana's name of Doriana, to get the Corrupted Soul. Now for the weapon, and weapon can still be improved, but it would be harder to get. +1 to Socrates spell skill gems affect the Herald despite spell damage not affecting the Herald. The spell critical strike chance does not affect the Heralds. Flat damage to spells does not affect the Heralds either way. And we have 0% base critical strike chance. But you still would want elemental overload, so you have to add critical strike chance to your health as well by getting a self-fulfilling prophecy on a medium cluster jewel. These two give 2% crit chance, which is pretty small amount, but then again your Herald of Thunder is going to be proccing very often, like over 7 times per second. So the weapon with +1 to either lighting spell skill gems or +1 to all spell skill gems, plus either lighting damage, lighting penetration would actually even be better than lighting than +1. You could technically get +2 scepter with lighting damage and lighting penetration. That would probably be the highest damage you could get on a weapon, but it would also be many divines. Same goes on a shield. You can get +1 to lighting, but I went with the synthesized shield so that I can try to craft something nice. Recover life when you block, you absolutely want that. If it's not on implicit, it's gonna have to be I believe shapers or elders. I also managed to get +3 to maximum lighting resistance on the shield, which is also very important because I take way less damage from rings. I don't drain my life and energy shield as fast, as quickly, and I have, well, more life sustain. Otherwise, on the shield, +1 to lighting skill gems, increase lighting damage, or you can bench craft flare damage. Flare damage is global on these crafts, so it will be added to heralds as well. Belt, very important, you want regenerate up to 200 energy shield per second while a rare or unique is nearby. A bench craft goes up to 120 I believe, but if it is unveiled and not bench crafted, then it can roll up to 200. I think I paid 100 chaos for this belt, but you can try to get something cheaper. Getting resistances was a challenge because you cannot use Purity of Elements, and it uses so many uniques already. So the boots will also, you're gonna have to get quite a lot of resistances on boots as well, and you do want open prefix to be able to craft this modifier, movement speed, and onslaught on kill. The onslaught on kill is gonna make this build feel a lot smoother. The amulet can also be a +1 to lighting skill gems. It can also roll, I believe, lighting damage but not very high. Spell damage will not affect it. You may also want to craft aspect of the spider on the amulet. For the flasks, you're also gonna want some armor, so granite works well. I am generating endurance charges anyway, so I do have percentage physical damage mitigation. Also, talking about that, because I'm constantly doing damage to myself with the rings, I can also use this. The troubles with the ultra wide screen monitor. Let me just scroll this. Right, so because I'm doing damage to myself with rings all the time, I can use this Souls of Grackle. I essentially get 5% physical damage reduction all the time. I am also freeze immune because of this. 50% reduced effect of chill on you is also very nice. The stun is whatever, even if I'm stunned, I'm still doing damage, so it's not a big deal. For the other flask, Amethyst Flask, you also want Chaos Resistance, and I don't really have Chaos Res, so I'm carrying Amethyst Flask to not have too terrible Chaos Resistance. And I did automate it when it reaches full, and when I crit, I don't really crit very often with the Herald of Thunder. However, the Galvanic Field that I have, I did set up it fully like utility. So Galvanic Field for me is linked with increased critical strike chance, Culling Strike, Power Charge on critical, and Onslaught. So the Onslaught is only used essentially against single target, because it does have 10% chance to grant Onslaught for 3 seconds when you hit a unique enemy with the Galvanic Field. And Galvanic Field attaches to a unique enemy by consuming your shocks. So you basically use it as a buff, and then the next shock, it will attach to that enemy, remove the shock, but you will quickly reapply the shock, so it doesn't matter. And it will keep zapping that enemy, and very often crit, gain power charges, which is gonna increase your crit chance for your Herald of Thunder as well, and the Galvanic Field. And that's how you also critting pretty frequently. So it also helps you recharge your flasks. So I pretty much try to set that up on all the flasks except this one. I am using this one manually. Same goes for the Quicksilver. And you want Corrupting Blood immunity, which you can get on like Corrupted Lone Messenger, which would be more expensive, but maybe it's worth investing. And I am running like Crackling Lance, just level 2, it doesn't matter the level. This is just to be able to reach enemies from a distance, to proc Shock, to proc Herald of Thunder. You can also just shield charge into enemies, but I don't have high enough accuracy to always proc it. You can also Flame Dash into enemies, which will guarantee a shock, but also that's risky. You don't really want to just end up surrounded by enemies waiting for Herald to kill something. That's another thing, Herald of Thunder will strike a different target each time, so when there are more than one target, your DPS goes down a lot. For map clear, the same rule applies. When you shield charge into big enemy pack, your Herald, it may zap with low damage multiple different enemies, and it won't kill anything for a while, and then something will die, and then boom, everything explodes. So until everything explodes, you don't really want to be in the middle of the enemy pack, so you want to be at a distance. So while mapping, you kind of go around enemies, not directly into them. Next, you want shield charge with the faster attacks. Immortal Call on left click. I am running Flame Golem, Tempest Shield, Stone Golem for regen. They do get resummoned automatically after 4 seconds after being killed, so you don't need to worry about them. Just make sure that you have them and you haven't like disabled them at some point. Then I got cast when damage taken, like low level with Wave of Conviction to apply exposure, lighting exposure. Cold Snap. I am running Val Cold Snap because I thought that I would be using Val Cold Snap, but you don't need Val version, just Cold Snap. And then Unbound Ailments to increase the chill effect and also shock effect. Then in the gloves that I do swap, I'm in the map clear gloves, I do have cast on Death Portal just in case, and then conductivity with Flame Dash. And for the gem swap, I also have conductivity and Flame Dash, but I am also using Temporal Rift just in case. Like Temporal Rift, once you activate it, reverses the time and can heal you if you use it at the right time. I have never used it. I have never used it, at least not properly. Maybe by accident. So yeah, those are supports. Now, for the passive skill tree, Elementalist, you go with the always shock, and all damage can shock. Then Mastermind of Discord, Heart of Destruction, and then lastly I picked up Liege of the Primordial, but you may actually want to pick up Liege of the Primordial from Cruel Labyrinth and use Stone Golem to help you sustain your life. And as you can see, there's a bit of traveling. Dexterity could be a bit of a problem, but you can just take Dexterity, or you can use the Careful Planning and convert the Intelligence into Dexterity, but ideally we'll probably want to use Intuitive Leap in here. That way you can pick up like mana if you need, but all the mana problems are solved with a single jewel I'm gonna show in a moment. But Intuitive Leap here can reach this one, which is nice. This one if you need more mana. Spell damage will not affect the Herald. You can also take these to reduce the reservation and get a bit more damage, or pick up that one and save a couple points. But in the end, it's not really saving all that much. You do want life recoup as soon as possible when you start using Herald of Thunder, because that's how you can kind of sustain yourself. You also want a base jewel like this, 2% of damage taken and recoup as mana. It will sustain all of your mana, because you are always taking damage, but not into your mana. But you do need some mana sustain for your cast and damage taken setup, and like Galvanic Field, the dash, and this jewel just sustains everything, because you're constantly hitting yourself, doing damage, and gaining mana recoup from that. You can also on Abyss Jewel go for the increased effect of lighting ailments. You're probably gonna want some resistances and life. You do get energy leech from this node, 1% elemental damage leech as energy shield from elemental mastery, and you travel through here to get effect of non-damaging ailments. And remember that non-damaging ailments is both chill effect, which slows enemies down even more, and also shock effect, which makes enemies take more damage. Well, increase damage. Now this is going for glancing blows to get the block, going for here. Taking these gives you a lot of elemental resistances, so after the Merciless Lab, when you need resistances, make sure that you have these and put on some shield that has resistances, and just later on figure out how to get the recover life on block, and just improve the shield in general. You're probably also gonna want to take this Unnatural Calm, +1 to maximum lightning resistance is very nice for this as well. On the Gluster Jewel you want Doriana's Lessons, and then Doriana's Lessons, ideally you would want 3 nodes, and then hopefully the middle one is like empty, useless, so you would take this, and then pick up these and leave these 3. But I bought this thinking that I'm gonna be going with Mind Over Matter, but I later dropped that. The Mind Over Matter with this was just draining mana way too quickly. On the medium jewels, like I said, you want Self-Fulfilling Prophecy, most importantly. The Dark Messenger is very useful. If you can get it, get it. Otherwise, whatever else you can get that gives damage. And then enduring composure is also very important. That's how you generate enduring charges all the time. One last thing, you do want on boots brittle ground. Essentially, you walk over enemies, leave the brittle ground, and the hits against that enemy gain extra base critical strike chance, which is very important for Herald of Thunder to proc elemental overload. You do want lightning mastery, of course. Lightning damage with non-critical strikes is lucky. When you find a diamond shrine in maps, either don't take it or take it and just right click on the icon to disable it, because once you take that, you will easily proc elemental overload, but you will lose damage. You will lose damage if you take diamond shrine, because you will always crit and never get lucky damage. Lucky lightning damage means it rolls damage twice and it picks the higher number, which overall is like something like 35% more damage. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. I can just go over my MTXs that I was using. So yeah, I'm using this from the previous league. Thunderstrike gloves, Astral Storm Rider. The weapon is Scourge weapon, Acer Warrior Wings, Acer weapon effect as well, Iridescence, helmet attachment, Gore Herald effect, one of my favorite Herald of Thunder effects. And yeah, that pretty much covers this build. Like I mentioned, I did get lucky with the Divine Altar, got 8 Divines, and decided to buy Osiris Disfavor. For my next build, I'm gonna be doing Spectral Throw, or at least I haven't even planned, so I still need to plan it and make sure that it's gonna look good. But the reason why I want to go with the Osiris Disfavor Spectral Throw is that Spectral Throw hitbox is half of your weapon range. Melee strike range does not affect that hitbox, but weapon range does. So using Osiris Disfavor almost doubles the hitbox of the Spectral Throw, which essentially should mean that I should be getting like 40% more DPS overall. At least I hope that it's gonna work that way. So my next build will most likely be Spectral Throw. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments below. I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.